Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here, welcome back to another video. Today I've got a bit of a news roundup in the world of Delta Force and Battlefield for you guys. And we're going to start with Delta Force because I had a nice surprise this morning when I logged in to find that they've basically added Conquest to the game. We've also gotten a pretty small patch for Battlefield 2042 over the last week that kind of went unnoticed, I think, for the majority of you. And then we had a little tidbit of news about the next Battlefield game in 2025 and what the campaign might entail. So guys, as always, if you enjoy the content here on the channel, hit the subscribe button. Plenty more to come on Delta Force and Battlefield in the future. I know the vast majority of you guys watching the videos aren't subscribed, so doing that really does help out the channel. It means a lot to me. And as always, guys, thank you so much for the support. Now, you guys know me if you've watched any of my footage in the background or if you've ever seen me stream, you'll know that I am predominantly really a Conquest player, not a breakthrough player, and that hasn't been available in Delta Force up until now. You know, for me, that full all-out warfare feeling within Battlefield, you have to have the vehicles in there. I really love playing as infantry. When a vehicle's available, I'll jump in there and try and do my best. And on the other side of the fence, if you're playing against a lot of vehicles, I really enjoy going engineer, trying to take out those helicopters with a missile or something, or just RPGing a tank and seeing it blow up. So super happy to see that they finally added this to Delta Force. I feel now I can properly compare it to my own personal Battlefield experiences. So it's not actually called Conquest in Delta Force, they're actually calling it, I believe, King of the Hill, which is a weird name for me because in my eyes, King of the Hill is like an objective or a number of objectives that will change position sporadically. You know, it'll spawn over here and then it disappears and it spawns somewhere else. That in my mind is King of the Hill, so I'm not sure if it's something that got lost in translation, but for lack of a better word, it is Conquest. So what does it play like? Well, you still have the same player number that we had in the breakthrough mode, the attack defense mode, so it's still 32 versus 32. The maps are the same size. We've still only got the two maps. I believe they did get a new map for Hazard Operations yesterday or the day before that. It's not yet available for Havoc Warfare, so we're still playing on Ascension and Cracked. So it's same map size, same amount of players, but obviously because it's Conquest, things are a lot more spread out, and there's a lot less heat around certain objectives. However, you are open to so many more lines of sight, especially on the Ascension map where there's a lot of verticality, there are snipers on cliff edges and whatnot, and you really have no idea where the enemy are going to be perched. I find it especially hard actually in this game because, I don't know about you guys, but I find it incredibly difficult to figure out where I'm being shot from. There don't seem to be that many tracers or like visual effects to tell you and signify, okay, wow, I'm being shot from over there. And in my opinion, in a game like this, you really need to know instantaneously, as soon as you're being fired upon, where those rounds are coming from so that you can appropriately take cover. That does not happen in this game, and it's really, really bad, in fact, if you're in a vehicle. The engineers in this game get a bunch of explosives. So I think they get 4 rounds for the RPG. Each shot of that will do 42 damage to a tank, so you can easily 3-shot a tank or an IFV or whatever. And then if you're playing as the new male Liz character, which is super funny by the way, I mean, can any of us really compare these two characters and say that this doesn't look like a male version of Liz? I called it that his gadget was going to be a TV missile, and yep, sure enough, it is indeed exactly that. It's a TV missile, so they've completely ripped off Liz as well. Kind of funny, but anyway, they get this TV missile gadget as well that does even more damage than the RPG. So they have a lot of explosives available. Even the assault operators have tons of explosives. But the irritating thing here as a tanker is that you can't actually see, again, any trace where the RPG came from. They fire extremely fast. They have very little drop, kind of similar to the M5 from Battlefield 2042. And the only thing you see as a tanker is an explosion. You hear the sound that you take damage, but you have absolutely no clue where that shot came from. So I think it definitely needs a little bit of balancing there. You can't react in any way in the game if you don't know where rounds are coming from, and it really is absolutely rampant in this new Conquest mode because you don't know where the enemies are. Now, it doesn't get much more balanced on the vehicle side of things either. The vehicles in this game, whilst they are pretty easy to take out and you get all these munitions as the engineer, they are completely overpowered if left alone. So here you can see I've found a nice cliff edge in the tank. I'm using the high explosive shells, and once I've figured out the drop, I'm able to snipe people ridiculously easy with this thing. It's a lot of fun, but it certainly feels a little bit cheap doing this as well. In fact, it reminds me of Battlefield 5, and indeed a problem that existed in Battlefield 2042 at the beginning, where tanks were so vulnerable that they would just sit back and snipe like this instead of actually getting into the fray and on the flags. I will say this though, the explosions from these rounds look absolutely gorgeous, don't they? It's pretty much the same story for the IFV as well. For anybody who's still running the regular high explosive rounds, do yourselves a favor and change to the second one. I think it's the APF SDS. They're supposed to be armor piercing rounds. Not great for killing infantry, but really good for killing vehicles. However, it somehow turns out that they're better for killing infantry than the high explosive rounds. You only need 2 hits. Even though the tooltip says that they have less splash damage, I can assure you that they have plenty splash damage to 2-hit an infantry, and if you hit them on the body, it's a 1-hit from any range. And then of course they have the added benefit that they do even more damage to armored vehicles as well, right? Now the helicopters are still kind of shite. You know, the movement of them is just absolutely terrible. They've got this weird thing going on where they rock to the side without you even giving them any input. If you hold S on the keyboard to descend, or you would hope you'd descend, it just doesn't work. Your helicopter doesn't go anywhere. So the only way you can drop altitude is by rolling your helicopter to the left or the right and actually ascending in that direction. It's extremely dangerous. It means you can't pillar up and down out of a mountain, you know, as cover against an AA, and it's just really not a great experience. So I would still steer clear of the attack helicopters. So yeah, overall, it's been a pretty nice experience. A lot more vehicles. I think there's like 1 attack helicopter, there's a couple of tanks, there's an IFV, there's an AA, so there's way more vehicles to go at here than in the breakthrough mode. So if that's something you guys have been looking for, you want a more conquest style mode instead of breakthrough, then this could be a lot of fun for you. And this is probably what I'm going to be playing for like the remainder of the playtest now. Okay, moving on to some Battlefield 2042. I know, guys, I still do make content on Battlefield 2042 and the Battlefield franchise in general. I know a lot of you guys have just been waiting for the Battlefield content. Maybe you're not interested in Delta Force. Don't worry, eventually it is going to return once we have something to talk about, and it just so happens that today we do. So there has been a very small patch here, update 8.0.1. It's probably worth mentioning. So there's been a couple of fixes, but the big changes here is that the MV-38 Condor, the hover to flight transition speed has actually been lowered from 2 down to 0.8, and additionally the transition speed from flying into hover mode has been lowered from 4 to 1.5. And basically what this means is that whenever you transition out of flight mode into hover mode or vice versa, it's going to be a lot snappier. And that's always the reason that I feel the Hind has been so much better than the Condor. The Condor is just so sluggish. If you activate that hover ability at the wrong time, or you go into flight mode at the wrong time, you're essentially a sitting duck. It's so easy to get RPG'd, it's easy to get lissiled, so that's a pretty good change there, I think. And that's pretty much it. That's the only real change. I'm going to put the other ones on screen for you guys now. As you can see, they're just like bug fixes, so no big deal for most of us. Now, the last bit of news here is about Battlefield 2025. So, as most of you will know, Motive, who created the Dead Space game, they also created Star Wars Squadrons, they are now working on Battlefield 2025. And as we already know, they're working alongside DICE Stockholm, Ripple Effect Studios, Criterion Games, who basically took over all of the campaign work from Ridgeline Studios. Marcus Later was heading up that studio. He and EA had a bit of a tiff, and for reasons unknown, they decided to shut down the newly established Ridgeline Studios, and then Criterion took over work on the campaign. What exactly Motive is doing is unknown at the moment. However, it's probably safe to say that they're helping out with the campaign as well. After all, they have a background in narrative-driven single-player games, so that just kind of makes sense. And Motive now have a job listing for, I believe it was an environment artist, something like that. Strangely, guys, the link that has been provided here no longer works. It no longer loads. It just leads to like a white empty page, so I'm not sure if the link is down or they've removed it for some strange reason. So I can't see what the job title is. But luckily, somebody screenshotted this here, and these are the qualifications for the job. And right at the bottom there, you can see that one of them is that open world experience is a plus, which very mildly hints at the fact that perhaps open world may be somehow involved in the next Battlefield game. That would be interesting. I think there are people out there who don't want that in the single player game. We kind of saw that in Halo Infinite, of course. They tried to go that way where you had like your main campaign missions, but you could also go and do secondary and tertiary missions around this open world. I didn't really hate it, but I didn't feel like it added too much to that Halo experience either. I could have just as easily had a regular Halo campaign, so who knows, maybe they're looking to try something similar with Battlefield here. As for the multiplayer side of the game, if that's really what you're interested in like me, I wouldn't worry too much. I don't think it's really going to come into play there. This, after all, is only for motive, and as far as I know, they're only working on the campaign. So any open world element that may possibly be added to the game is most likely 90% sure it's only going to be for the campaign. Now, that being said, this is a qualification here that is listed right at the end of all of them, so this may also mean absolutely nothing at all, but nevertheless, I thought it was maybe worth mentioning to you guys. I like to keep you updated on absolutely everything that's going on with Battlefield, because God knows there's not much of that at the moment, is there? Anywho, thank you guys so much for watching the video today. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a like down below if you did. Leave a comment and let me know if you would like an open world Battlefield game. Let me know what you think of Delta Force's new King of the Hill mode, if you've been playing any of that. And I will see you guys in the next video.